Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Douglas Flory, and it is my honor and privilege to be on the board of directors at ACMP, as well as serving as the treasurer. I will be your host for this session, Master Your Emotional Culture to Boost Resilience and Reduce Resistance, with Allison Coates, our friend for ACMP. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you of a few things so that you can get the most of your Global Connect experience. We hope you're having a great experience so far, but the success of our Change Management Global Connect 2023 would not be possible without our sponsors. So we'd like to take a moment here to thank each and every one of these sponsors on the screen and for all that they've done to make this such a wonderful event. Thank you so much to our sponsors. Make sure to visit them in the exhibit hall as well. We also have our Career Center up, and you can go in there, look for jobs. I know many people are looking for roles these days as we see things on social media all the time. Perhaps you can go in there, find a role, connect. You can even post jobs if any of you are employers who are sharing opportunities with your career. Check the attendee hub under More, then Career Center. At any time during this session and other sessions, you'll be able to ask questions. To do so, please ask a question, hit the Ask a Question button, and you'll see the Q&A button. You can also upvote other attendees' questions that come in. The speaker will then leave some time toward the end of the session and may also be able to answer some more questions in the post-session group discussion. I also want to remind you that this session is being recorded, and the recording will be available in the on-demand section of our event page within 2 hours, and the materials provided by the speakers are already available in the session description page. All you have to do is simply go to the bottom down there, click on the details, and you'll be able to see those the contents Allison has provided. Now, let's get started. It's my absolute pleasure and honor to introduce our speaker for this session. Allison's a certified emotional intelligence coach, a qualified industrial psychologist, program and project manager. She actively champions personal, professional, and organizational success and is personally motivated by the achievement and sustainability of goal-focused outcomes. Allison's success centers around the multidisciplinary approach she brings to her practice, having spent 25 years in a corporate environment as a business change and transformation consultant, as well as a program manager, both in the UK and in South Africa. Allison now combines this experience with emotional intelligence and life coaching techniques to enable her clients to strengthen their personal awareness, develop and excel at new skills that enhance how they connect and collaborate and navigate opportunities for growth within the working environment. Allison, welcome, friend, and sawubona. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Doug, for that wonderful introduction. It's really great to be back with the ACMP team again for a second year. Let me just finish sharing my slides. And just to get a little bit of housekeeping out the way, there is the disclaimer slide, but let's get straight into today's presentation. And firstly, thank you to everybody who's here watching live, but also especially to those of you who are watching in replay. Today's topic is all about mastering your emotional culture in order to reduce resistance. I want to share with you a little bit today around change leadership and what change leadership really is when we think about it from an emotional competence perspective. I'm going to give you an opportunity to experience emotional awareness for yourself. And having done that, we're going to spend a little bit of time in the geeky world of neuroscience before I leave you with 3 easy ways that you can immediately start to take the temperature of your change programs. So I'm Alison. I'm dialing in today from beautiful sunny Durban in South Africa. It's 2:00 in the afternoon here. Some of you have just woken up. Some of you are halfway through your days. Some of you might be right at the tail end of your day. And I'm curious to know, how are you today? But I'd like to ask you this in a very different way. And I'd like you to answer it from the perspective of, how are you showing up here today? And I'm going to make it really easy. You can put your answers into the chat, and Doug's going to share that with me in a minute. So on a scale of 1 to 5, we can often show up in a number of different ways, and we're always managing these tensions between feeling distracted, and number 1, or really present, and number 5, feeling somewhat low in our energy, or perhaps really attentive, really energized and engaged. Maybe because it's early in the day or late in the day, you're feeling somewhat, it's a conference, I'm not quite sure, so I'm a little bit unclear. Or perhaps you're really focused and you've got that clarity. So pop it into the chat and let's see, where is everybody at today on a scale of 1 to 5 in terms of how we're showing up. So Doug, let me know if there's any responses come through on the chat yet.
Yeah, they're definitely populating in response to your request, Alison. Depending upon location, some people are doing very well because they just had some ice cream as part of their day.
Awesome.
But we're seeing, let's see, I'm just going to read off some numbers. 5s, 4s, 2, a little sleepy, a little tired, just waking up. 3, 4, 4, 3, 3.5, 5, 2, 3.
Awesome.
I'm 4 trending 5, 4.5. So I think it's mostly based upon their time zone right now.
Great. And I love the halves, because isn't that somebody being really specific about how they're showing up? So that's great.
Yeah.
You know, the thing here is, ladies and gentlemen, we don't score a gold star just for saying 5. And I'm so glad some of you are sitting at a 5. But we score that gold star for authentically noticing how we are showing up. And in this moment, right now, in this moment, to choose to do just one thing to move closer to a 5. Or if you are already at a 5, let's choose in this moment to notice what is supporting us in being at a 5. And for any of you who've listened to the keynote speaker, Cassandra, who was on the first day yesterday, she speaks about seizing these opportunities when we understand and we get that signal of that emotion coming up, and we've got that opportunity of choice. This is that opportunity for you. And as we are starting to build our awareness of how we are showing up here today, I'm going to invite you to do a mindful exercise with me. And with this awareness that we are building here today, together in this moment right now, just do whatever you need to do to shuffle around in your seats. Maybe some of you are having coffee or tea in bed. It's first thing in the morning. Whatever you need to do, just get into that posture, that breathing rhythm that you know you are about to pay attention. And without paying too much attention to the imagery that's on the slide in front of you, some of you might find it easier to do this exercise with your eyes closed. Some of you are going to find that's fine, you're not so distracted, but just soften your gaze. And with this awareness of how you are showing up, bring into your consciousness and your awareness all of the people that you work with. Bring them into your thoughts, into your mind's eye, all of the people that you currently work with. And as we're breathing in this beautiful awareness of the people that you work with, that we work with, and on your next breath, I want you to take that awareness and expand it. Expand it to be the teams that support the people who you work with. Build that awareness out to the teams who support the people that you work with. And on your next breath, taking a really expansive breath in and building our awareness even wider to the people who are in the cities and the towns who support the teams, who support the people that you work with. And as we take our last breath in together here today for this particular exercise, an even broader, expansive awareness starts to build of the people who are in your state, your province, your county, who support the people in the towns and the cities, who support your teams, who support those who work with you. And I invite you just to sit with this awareness here today. And with this awareness, slowly open your eyes or raise your gaze and bring yourself back into this conversation. And I'm going to ask you 2 questions. What do they need you to learn here today? You don't need to pop it into the chat, but just think about it. What do they need you to learn here today? And the second question, what does the future you need to learn and focus on here today? Folks, the world is changing faster than any of us can ever imagine. And with this rate of change and with so much changing, we've got to support our clients and our customers in navigating the pace and the amount of change. Because not only are they dealing with change within their own team, we are all dealing with change within our own cities, our own areas, our own countries, geographically, and at compounds. We've got to learn different things, and we have to learn different things faster than ever before. And we have to support our clients in doing the same. So not just for my presentation, but for all of the sessions in the conference, have these 2 questions at the back of your mind and just think about, what do they need me to learn here today? And what does the future me need to focus on? Because what we are supporting our clients navigate is noise. Complexity, overwhelm, uncertainty is all contributing to noise. And this is why most of our projects fail. A lot of research will tell you, and I'm not going to quote too many of those here today because that's not the remit, but a lot of research will tell you that 80% of our projects fail because of our human factor skills. And indeed, if you go and listen to some of the presentations that have spoken around data in the conference already, you're going to get some of that information for you. Our projects fail because of our human factor skills. As early as 1988, Daniel Goleman, the father figure of emotional intelligence, did some research mainly in the sales arena, but he was curious to know what was the difference between your top performers and your low performers. And his research shows us that 1/3 of that difference comes down to our technical or our cognitive ability, our thinking ability, and 2/3 of that difference relates to our emotional competence, our emotional intelligence. Emotional competence is our ability to recognize, understand, and regulate emotions in self, and very importantly, to recognize, understand, manage, and inspire emotions in others. In practical terms, this means being aware of our own emotions and understanding that our emotions drive behavior and it's going to impact on others. I always say to my clients, we can either infect or affect people by the way that we show up each and every day. And so we have to learn how to recognize emotions, understand them, and then manage, regulate, and inspire. In layman's terms, what we're talking about here is we're talking about the how we get things done. You know, in projects, we manage time, cost, and quality. It's the base level for what we are often, for what we are often measured against in our projects, time, cost, and quality. But if all we do is measure time, cost, and quality, all we are doing is measuring our tangibles. We're going to get exactly what we anticipated. We're going to get what's expected. We've got to go to a deeper level and start to think about some of the satisfaction scores, some of the more subjective perspectives that people have around our performance. I'm talking here about the human factor skills that drive our success. Our leadership skills when it comes to an emotional competence really is, and in change, this is the leadership that I hope that we all start to work towards and aspire to, is that transformational leadership, where we are supporting our clients and our customers in being able to make the next decision or take the next step in the direction of the change that we are trying to implement and support our clients in adopting. Our personal skills. How do we connect with each other? How do we collaborate? These are the type of personal skills we need to start to finesse. Communication. In the project space, we talk a lot around accuracy of our data and measuring and getting things done right the first time. Accuracy is important, but what's even more important is clarity. When we are communicating, we have to provide accuracy and clarity of communication. A confused mind will always say no. An overwhelmed mind will always, without fail, disengage. Teamwork. What are we doing to build rapport? But not just with our own teams. What are we doing to build rapport across the network of our stakeholders? And finally, our social intelligence. This is the ability to be aware of self in context of others. And I say to my clients, there's a wonderful way of remembering awareness. When we lack awareness of self, we can often be rudderless, like a boat without a rudder. It goes round and round in circles. When we lack awareness of others, we can often be clueless. We say things or do things that are inappropriate and out of turn. When we lack awareness of the wider world, in other words, our context, we can so often be blindsided. Things happen from left field. Awareness is so important when we are building our human factor skills. And our human factor skills, if we have to think about it, really starts to speak into our emotional culture. Now, I'm sure that here today, I'm speaking to an audience who fully appreciate and understand just how important our culture is in our organizations. Cultures, how our strategy is aligned to the way that our people think and behave. But this is our cognitive culture. A lot of organizations spend a lot of time and effort to measure cognitive culture. I hope that by the end of today, you will appreciate that there's a deeper level of culture that we can start to get curious about. Our emotional culture sits below the water level. Our emotional culture is the feelings that our teams and our people have. Cognitive culture, our thinking culture. Emotional culture, our feeling culture. So, in order for me to give you an idea of what I mean from an emotional awareness and emotional culture perspective, I hope you've got a pen and paper handy because we're going to do a pen and paper exercise. It's not for the chat just yet. And what I'm going to ask you to do while you're grabbing a pen and paper, if you don't have one, is I just want you to think about the last 24 hours. Cast your mind back to this time yesterday. Maybe it was first thing in the morning, maybe it was lunchtime, maybe it was in the evening. Cast your mind to 24 hours ago, and I'm going to give you 60 seconds. And all I want you to do is make a list, write down all of the emotions that you can recall experiencing. And your 60 seconds starts now. Just a list. Do not judge. Don't worry if you run out of ideas. A list of all of the emotions that you can recall experiencing. You've got about 15 seconds left. Okay. So I'm going to trust that you're all going to put your pencils or your pens down and join me back in the conversation again. We're going to debrief this exercise in a minute or two, and I can't wait to see what some of the results are. But before I debrief the exercise, let's just explore a little bit about the geeky world of neuroscience. And for some of you, you will already know this and appreciate how neuroscience impacts on our emotions. And maybe today you might learn a different perspective on that. But I'd love to engage with you after the session on that as well. So I'm going to share a couple of numbers with you. Not normally a data person myself. I like to keep things really simple from a numbers perspective. I've got 3 numbers that I'm going to share with you about the brain. Your brain takes up 2% of your body weight, but it uses 25% of the nutrients that you take on board each and every day. It is a super sophisticated but highly sensitive piece of equipment, taking up only 2% of our entire body, around about. And it is super greedy from a nutrients perspective. When we're under stress, when things are changing, when things feel uncertain and we're not really sure what to do, it takes a real battering because it's trying to deal with the stress. Our thinking brain, our prefrontal cortex, uses 25% of the 25%. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you are suffering with a little bit of brain fog, if you are thinking you can't see the wood for the trees, please have a glass of water. Grab some super nutrient-rich nuts and seeds, have some extra omegas with your dinner, feed that greedy, sophisticated, hungry brain of yours. 2% versus 25%. And here comes your third number. 5 times every second, your brain is making a decision. I can't even do the maths. 5 times every second. It's so fast. It's in a heartbeat. 5 times every second, your brain is deciding, Is this experience, conversation, email, meeting, person safe or dangerous? Is this experience safe? And your brain, the emotional part of your brain, the amygdala, tags it with feel-good emotions. Yes, I'm about to feel empowered. I feel informed. I've been consulted. I'm calm. I'm relaxed. I've been included. I feel safe. Dangerous. There's too much going on. I'm really overwhelmed by what's happening. I'm confused by the tone of this email. I'm anxious about tomorrow. I'm not sure what's going to be waiting for me when I get to my desk. The future feels uncertain. I feel like I can't make any decisions. I feel disempowered. Dangerous. Unsafe. 60 to 90 seconds later, the thinking brain, hopefully, kicks into action. And we base our decisions and our behaviors on the emotional tag that has just happened. And this is what is happening in our change programs, ladies and gentlemen. Change is complex and overwhelming. We try and simplify it, but we are dealing with humans, super sensitive, emotional creatures. It's no wonder that some of our organizations have got behaviors that look somewhat like what we've got on the screen now, where people are procrastinating. You might find that some of your team are defensive and starting to say things like, but we've not done it like this before, or aggressive, and their tone becomes really, really angry in response to some feedback that you've given. Perhaps they're unhelpful, whereas previously they've always been part of the team. If you could just press pause and get curious enough about the emotions that are sitting below these behaviors, you will start to see something like this. You have a team of people who feel disempowered. Therefore, they don't take responsibility or ownership. They might feel guilty because they are benefiting from the change, but others aren't. Guilt drives a whole myriad of behaviors. Confusion, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to do nothing. Anxiety, well, I'm certainly not going to do that. We need to prime our organizations, and we need to understand that despite the complexity that change and challenge presents, we can create organizations where people really feel included, cared for, informed, valued. There's a purpose to them being in the space that they occupy at work. And we will start to see a different set of behaviors where people are collaborating, where people feel valued. They're more likely to promote your brand. Your brand could very well just be the strapline that you have for your change program, where people feel purpose-driven, meaningful work. They're more likely to engage not only in the work, but also with each other. And we need to prime our organizations for this, because when our organizations are made up of a culture where people feel safe and are driven by pleasant, productive emotions, we've got teams of people who think expansively, creatively, they engage deeply, they make better decisions, and they decide things faster, and they're more confident to take the next step in the direction of your journey. The science of emotion tells us that when we are primed into that flight or fight response, I'm not going to be very creative. In fact, I'm just going to stay in my lane. I'm going to be very narrow-minded and limited in my thinking. In fact, there's biology behind this, because cortisol, our stress hormone, literally switches off the thinking brain. We don't need to think when we're under attack. We just need to escape. We don't escape physically, we escape here. We escape by not paying attention. We escape by disengaging. We escape by becoming defensive, protecting my patch. This is the science of emotion, and our change organization is filled with a myriad of these, neither right nor wrong. All of our emotions are valid. Every single emotion is a piece of information. When we can understand how our teams are showing up, we can start to deal with some of the resistance that we see in our change organizations. So, are you ready to share the results of your 24-hour emotion awareness exercise? Again, super simple. I'd just like you to answer with 3 numbers. I'm going to give you the questions in a second, and please use the chat. How many did you get in total? No judgment here. How many were pleasant and how many were unpleasant? So you might have had 6 in total, 2 pleasant and 4 unpleasant. You might have had 10 in total, 5 and 5. So just put some numbers into the chat. I can see Doug is nodding his head. Are they coming through?
They're starting to, yeah. Everybody's making a lot of great comments about your content so far. So,
oh, lovely. That's awesome. Thank you, everyone.
All right, here come the numbers. 404 532 12 6 and 6 835 734 743 835 541 624 1046
Lovely.
555. Oh no, sorry, 5 pleasant, 5 unpleasant, 725 642. So you can definitely see a spread of different totals,
Yeah.
and pleasant and unpleasant 24 hours ago at this time.
This is so typical of every time that I do this exercise. And for those of you who are sitting with more unpleasant than pleasant, it's biology. Our brain's primary role and function is our survival. Our brain is looking out for the danger. It's not looking out for the cuddly teddy bear. It wants to know the dinosaur that's about to chase us down the corridor at work. So don't worry if your ratio was more unpleasant to pleasant. It is just biology. But out of curiosity, how easy was it for you to remember? It was 1. It was really difficult for me to try and remember how I was feeling in the last 24 hours. And a 5, it was super easy for me to remember. And again here, this is about building our awareness. There's no judgment on this. Maybe today you scored a 2 because it wasn't very easy. You actually had to literally go, I woke up, I did this, I did that. Yes. And then you had to like literally walk through your day. I invite you for the rest of this week, well, actually nearly at the end of the week, for the next 7 days, try this exercise at the end of every day and just start to celebrate some of the emotions that come up for you. And then what I'd like you to do is to sit with those ratios and think about what impact has that ratio had on the outcome of my day. Because how we show up is important from our ability to build relationships with others. We've seen how if somebody is primed into an unproductive emotion, so if I cause somebody else to feel frustrated, they are less likely to want to engage with me later on in the day. It's important for me to be aware of how I'm showing up so that I can build relationships, so that I can create deep, meaningful connections across the network of my stakeholders. I can really begin to understand my clients without any bias or judgment or filtering, because I've got out of my own way. And I can start to find value in the services that others have offered me without any judgment. When our teams feel empowered, when other people feel empowered, they are going to become lateral, expansive, creative thinkers who focus on their goals, who love to follow instructions. If I'm feeling productive and pleasant, I'm unlikely to argue with you to score a point about an instruction or a request. I might tweak it a little bit, but I'm probably going to follow your instructions. Versus when I'm primed into a really annoyed, uncertain, overwhelmed state, I might become a little bit more defensive over my way of doing things. And this is important for your teams as well. So we start with awareness of self, but we've got to take it out to that next expansive place of thinking, which is around your team, your project's emotional culture. So thinking about your project team, what do you think their ratio of productive to unproductive emotions might be? Run this exercise with them. See what comes up. How do you think they would respond to that first question that I asked earlier today? How distracted versus present are they? How energized versus attentive are they? Do they have clarity? Do they know what this meeting is all about? Are they focused? Have they got enough clarity to be focused? We've got to start getting curious about how our teams are feeling. How are you feeling today? Tells me about how I'm feeling in the moment. How would you expect to feel? Tells me about, I feel a little bit worried, but I would expect to feel a bit more certain given the context of the work that I'm doing, the proximity to our go live, whatever it might be. And finally, ideally, I know that if I had clarity, I could be more efficient at being able to make decisions and take the next step. How do we feel currently? How would you expect to feel? Ideally, how would you like to feel? 3 really important questions we can start to get curious about with our teams. It always starts with awareness. We've got to start with awareness of self and build awareness of others and the wider world. That social intelligence that I spoke about from our people, our human factor skills. Change is tricky to navigate. Remember the image that I showed you with the water, with all the emotions lying below the surface? We are not islands. There's so much change happening in our world right now. It's going to compound on us. We've got change in every facet of our lives. Please, let's start supporting our teams, even just in the nucleus that we work with, from an emotional perspective, from paying attention to the emotions that you start to see on a day-to-day basis. When we can deal with the emotions, we start to be able to discover the real factors driving resistance. Because our emotions are our most authentic part of who we are. Now, when I measure emotional culture in organizations, I have a tool that I use. It's an emotional culture survey, but I'm here to tell you some nice and easy ways that you can do it yourselves. Bring emotions into your daily stand-ups and into all of your steerco sessions, even with your sponsors and your executive leaders. And here's some nice, easy ways that you can do it. In your stakeholder and project check-in sessions, you could ask on a scale of 1 to 5, how X do you feel about? A lovely thing to do is to think about your corporate values and what emotions are going to support your corporate values. Maybe confidence supports your corporate values. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how confident do you feel about X? Ideally, how confident would you like to feel about X, because you know it would help you to become more effective and efficient in your role. And then we've got the beauty data of a gap, and we can put some plans in place some actions, some tools, some methodologies, some techniques to bridge the gap of confidence. Another way you could do this, a lovely project management tool, simple RAG status. How are you feeling today? Red, amber, or green? Track your RAG status over the space of a couple of weeks, a couple of months. Start to see what shows up. If your team were all green last week and suddenly they're all red, I think we might need to ask some questions around what's happened in the last week. And finally, from an energy perspective, how energized do your team feel today? High, medium, low? How energized would you ideally like to feel, because you know it's going to support you in making the decisions and doing the things you need to do today? Some really easy ways for us to start to engage with the questions around our emotional culture. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the science of emotions. Our emotions drive our thinking and our decisions. Our emotions drive our behavior. Decisions and behavior over time is performance. When we start to see resistant performance, we've got to get curious and reverse engineer this equation to start to think about what emotions might be underlying those behaviors and put plans in place that are going to support you in managing and regulating those emotions. I am going to caveat that by saying there is no judgment. Please notice how through the presentation today, I have referred to pleasant or unpleasant emotions, productive or unproductive emotions. I have not, and I will whisper these words, used the words positive or negative, because all of our emotions are valid. They are all pieces of information. When we notice we are feeling anxious, get curious about what might be driving that anxiety. We don't sweep it under the carpet. What we resist persists. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you've taken away some nuggets from today. What have been your 3 key takeaways? Maybe while I'm wrapping up, you might like to pop that into the chats. And if we've got some time, we can share those. We've also got a few minutes left for some Q&A. My 3 key takeaways, if I can give you my top 3, are: take these questions into every presentation you listen to over the next day and a half. What do they need you to learn here today? What does the future you need to focus on? It's all biology. It's the science of emotions. Think more broadly, engage more deeply, make better decisions when we're primed for pleasant, productive emotions. And lastly, awareness is key. We've got to start to measure some of these things. This is another layer to that data that you can start to collect around your projects and programs. And thank you so much for your attention, for your engagement. I can't wait to go back and read the chats and see what's in the chats and some of the comments. But for now, Doug, anybody got some top key takeaways or questions?
Yeah, there's a lot of reactions and comments to how you're making everybody feel and just how much they're obtaining out of this session, Allison.
Thank you.
I personally am taking away a lot right now. I'm just going to share some comments with you about how they're responding here toward the end. They really like how you kind of, I kind of chuckled a little bit when you said, I'm going to whisper positive or negative. I kind of chuckled at that because we do kind of influence things that way. There's a couple of comments about that. A lot of the comments are really around how great your content is, your style, and whether it seems like regardless if it's morning, midday, or evening, or whatever time zone they're or point of day they're in, this is really helping them to stop and start their morning, to avoid think about all that noise you mentioned before, and to process what's going on and understand it and how they make a difference. A lot of great sessions, great content type commentary. brain consumption, think broadly, emotional connection to response. Those are some people are starting to share that there are 3 words. And so keep those 3 words coming in. Here's one you'll like. Best presentation of the conference so far. We do have a post discussion session coming up. So
Yes.
we have been capturing your questions in the Q&A. We will certainly be taking some time to look at those. And yeah, I agree with a lot of the comments that are coming in now. A lot of takeaways to share with my team in my daily work, in our routines and lives, things like that. If I may share one comment that was shared earlier, a lot of what you talked about resonated with people, not only from a professional perspective, but also from a personal perspective about what's going on in their lives and all the noise outside of our doors and our homes and our apartments and everything. How that really influences our emotions as well.
It's so true. And we must remember the whole person shows up at the office door. So we can't divorce the two. And it's a really great insight to have. And absolutely, it applies in all facets of our life.
Yeah. All right. Still checking out the questions that are coming in here. They said they're going to use this for themselves, and you make this in such a simple, concise, and effective, thoughtful approach. That they really appreciate how you were able to do that as well.
Thank you.
Simple, but not easy.
But there's that saying that really sits with me, and maybe this is something that the next time you're communicating with another person, you might want to just remember: a confused mind will always say no. And that's why that clarity of communication is so important. And the brain can only remember 5 things. We can only take on 5 bits of information at a time. But I remember I think it was from Toastmasters, actually, the power of 3 points and then move on, because after that we start to overwhelm people. So there's lots of little tools and tricks that you'll pick up along the way, and try them out for yourself. And if they work, then keep doing them.
Yeah, the rule of 3.
Yes,
I think is what that's called. So I know we're approaching toward the end of our session here. I just want to remind you, while we're in it, of a couple of things. Thank you for the questions, number 1. Thank you for your great interaction in the chat. Second thing I'd like to remind you is, while we're in this session, or even afterwards, you can always come back to Allison's session, and at the bottom of the homepage, there are session content materials. Allison's been very gracious, so has the other speakers, to be able to provide content for you to follow along, to take with you and apply as you go forward. And I know that I'm going to take some of these and apply them in my daily thinking and in part of my world. And the third thing I'd like to ask you to do is, on the homepage of Allison's session, there is a survey. If you could please click on that survey. It's very short, painless, easy, simple questions, but it's invaluable to us at ACMP, because it provides feedback on this session. It provides feedback to help influence and inform how we think about upcoming conferences and what other topics and speakers do we want to have, and the power and the impact of that via your voice. So please take a moment to fill out that survey. And Allison, thank you so much for doing this. We're going to transition over to the Zoom dialogue for the post session, and we're going to have an interactive opportunity to ask Allison questions, share comments, reactions, thoughts. But anything in closing, Allison, you'd like to offer or share?
No, just thank everybody for their engagement, for attention today, and for getting curious about emotions and how we are showing up each and every day. I look forward to either engaging in the chat later on or in the next session. Thank you so much, Doug, for hosting. Always a pleasure to be with you here at ACMP.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you. It's our honor. And thank you, everybody. We'll see you in the Q&A.
Great.
Bye-bye.